Hi, do you have stamps, but you don't use them because you don't like to color? I think this video is going to be for you. I'm Lolly, and I want to talk about other things you can do with your stamps that might help you to get the stamps out and start using them again. So let's get started. So I want to give you some samples of stamping ideas you can do without having to color, and also some alternatives to coloring if you just feel that your own coloring techniques are lacking. So a lot of reasons that we don't like coloring is maybe we don't want all the stuff. We don't want all the colored pencils and all the alcohol markers and all the markers and all the watercolor paints. And then we just can't blend to look like the cards we're seeing on Instagram. So I will give you some options. So first of all, for no coloring at all, I did ink blend a background. I just stamped the stamp in white, cut it out, and glued it on the background. And you can see it's quite stunning. And the little pop of black in the background makes the whole thing really come out and accentuate the black of the stamped images. So you don't have to color your images. Another option is I did the ink blending and then stamped directly over the ink blending. Now I did use a black marker just to color in to make it kind of look like Zentangle in just some circles and rectangles here and there. But for the most part, I didn't really need to color any of that in, but it did help it to really pop, and I'm not really blending in. I'm just using the colors of the inks back there. Now you can use pattern paper back here. You can use your color bursts. You can use watercolor. You can use whatever you want for this background. It could be scrapbooking paper that's just patterned. So that's what you can put this white on. And then another option is to go ahead and do another ink blending, stamp it, and then fussy cut that out, the ink blended version. You can see we have 3 different cards here, all 3 different techniques. They all have their own nuances. They're all pretty. I mean, I would love to get any of those cards. Okay, and now another option is you could stamp, looks like we stamped directly on this ink blended paper. You could stamp directly on patterned paper. It's very cute. Now, what I did was I did take a pink marker and just outlined it like this to create a shadow around it. It's not really coloring a stamped image, but it does help it to pop. Another thing to really help that to pop is instead of using your typical ink pad, to use a really vibrant pad like the Catherine Pooler Midnight. Now, this is a very soft, squishy pad. You just need to touch it to your stamp. Don't push it on the stamp. You got to trust me on that one. Okay, another option is to just go completely neutral. No colors involved at all. All black and white. It's stunning. Or you could use a colored ink with a matching cardstock, like all red ink, red cardstock, blue ink, blue cardstock. So that also works just fine. Now, the next one, I just stamped it on fabric, and I'm using the archival ink in ground espresso. I wanted it to kind of have a bit of a faded look, so if you want darker, you can use fabric ink to stamp that out. You know, I'll let this set for a little while, and then I'll press it to make sure it's good and permanent. Another thing is you don't have to use the whole card or the whole stamp. This, I just cut a 2-inch circle, and I just stamped part of the image on part of the circle. And I made a really cute little embellishment there. And you could use, you don't even have to mount it on the black. You could just use this anywhere on a project. So you could be doing mixed media. I did add a little, this is actually hot glue that I squirted out in circles onto a Teflon or silicone mat, and then put glitter over it. So that's really fun. And I did mention like how here I stamped on some patterned cardstock. Well, you can actually stamp on patterned or solid cardstocks and only stamp part of your image. So think of it as like a girl or an animal or a scene or my flowers that I'm using. So I stamped this repeatedly. I stamped it on yellow, I stamped it on orange and on red and on pink and on green. And I only stamped out basically the parts that I needed, and then I fussy cut those out. You can barely tell, but it is patterned paper. It just very soft patterns on here. But again, it looks like it's been colored just beautifully, and it hasn't. So here's an example of a different stamp that was pattern pieced. So paper piecing is what we call this, in that you stamp several times, cut out each individual piece. So I stamped her on this paper. I stamped her shirt on this and this, her dress. I stamped this and that. I cut them all out, layered them up. I have silicone caulking in the layers so that it's flat here and then it's elevated towards the end. It gives it kind of a raised wedge look for her dress. I did use colored pencil on her face, hair, and her legs and skin, but I just want you to see what the whole paper piecing of her dress looks like and paper piecing here. So if you have a stamp you really like, this is really stunning. You can see there's several options here that you can use for all those. And I do want to talk about a couple options about coloring. I think people get discouraged about coloring because, like I said, they don't want all of the stuff. They don't want all the colored pencils. They don't want all the alcohol markers. They don't want all of the watercolor paints. And we get intimidated because we see these beautifully blended coloring jobs. And we feel like if our card doesn't look like that, then we don't know how to color. So I just want to show you that if you are willing, this is just colored in solid. When we were children and we colored in our coloring books, how many of us really did blending? We didn't. We had a shirt, we colored it in solid red. You know, we had the shorts on the little girl, we colored them in solid blue. So each one of these is just a solid color. There's no blending involved, no shading, no highlighting. All I did was take, just like I did the accent around this one with a marker, I took a gray pencil and went around the outside perimeter just so it would pop up off the page and I wouldn't have to fussy cut it and put it up on foam tape. But you can see that it really looks effective and you don't have to do all of that amazing coloring. However, if you do want to try to do coloring in a way that you can make it look like you've done a really pretty blending job, but you really haven't. It's kind of a cheat, and I want to encourage you. Maybe this would be something you'd be interested in, and that is if you're going to get a set of colored pencils for making really stunning cards, you want them to look great, you don't like the flat look of just coloring solid areas, is to get a set of watercolor pencils. These are Faber-Castell Gold Fiber Aqua, and these were sent to me by the company a while back, and I just want to show you how you can do this with hardly any blending at all. For instance, let's look at these leaves, and I'm just going to pick a section, and I'm not going to color the entire leaf. I'm going to do dark toward the top, and then I'm going to take a water brush, and just activate it. I got too much water there. There we go. I did stamp this out on mixed media paper, and I'm just bringing that out to the end. Now, when this dries, it's going to look like I did an amazing job of blending dark to light, or it's going to look like watercolor paint. And it doesn't take that much practice or experience. And I'm just going to pull that in. You could use a brush in water, or you can do what I'm doing and just use this water-filled brush here. So easy. Now, while I have this, I'm going to do this one as well. And you see it's way less coloring too. I'm not coloring the whole leaf. I'm not even worried that, see how my strokes are so unappealing there? I'm just not worried about it. I just think this is such a forgiving medium. And voila, it looks amazing. It looks like I spent time really blending in 2 or 3 different colors. And let's say I wanted to go into the flower. Let's do pink. I keep doing these yellow. Let's say I'm just going to do the base of each of these kind of pink.
bring it out just a little bit into the petal, and not much. Again, I'm scribbling. I try to get the first line there straight, you know, against the outline, but then I just scribble my way in like that. So it's not hard. I think this has been a very satisfying and rewarding method for coloring for me. And you could use watercolor paper, but you do want to use the paper that is smooth, which is the heat pressed. And then we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to grab that paint and bring it down into the petal. Now and then you need to give the brush a little squeeze to get more water down, but that's it. And if you get too much water, just have your rag there. These have been a blessing too. I just picked up a set of 20 of these microfiber cloths, and I use them for my brushes. I use them for my, when you clean your better press plates, you're not supposed to use anything that has lint, and so this is a lint-free cloth. I use it for cleaning my stamps, so, and 20 of those cloths, I don't need that many, so I've been sharing them with friends. Okay, look how fast and how quick this is. It just activates those colors and pulls them right out. Now, isn't that gorgeous? I didn't really have to worry about my brush strokes. I didn't have to worry about any of that. Now, let's say I skip this one because I want that to be white, but I want this to be, I don't know, let's say we want to go with the orange. I'm not usually an orangey person, but let's go for it. Just pick a line. Don't worry about shadows. Don't worry about what's your source of light. You know, we always say you got a light source and you have, just don't worry about it. And play around, because these are just fun flowers. Isn't that cool? Now for the inside of that, I think, let's see, let's just do, again, I don't want the whole thing colored solid because it won't give me any blending. Now, if you decide you don't have enough, all you have to do is put a little more color on there, like that. Okay, and that's all it is. So I will finish this off camera, but I just wanted to encourage you that it's so easy to do this. This is probably the easiest colored penciling I've ever done. If you get to look at this and it's all dry and you think it's really not bright enough, just take the same color and go over it once more, a little, with laying a little more color down there. I'll show you what I mean. And pull that out and then say, yeah, I like that better. And you can get a darker petal if that's the way you like it, or you can put a different color on there and pull it out. So I will finish this off camera, but I hope that gave you some really good ideas on ways that you could use your stamps and not color, or use some coloring techniques that aren't as intimidating, like this, or just coloring in solid colors without blending at all. So also, look at the links underneath this video. You have to expand to see that information so that you can see all of it. And under the title of this video, I will give you some links and some supplies you might need. And also, just remember that you can do these techniques with any stamp you have. It doesn't have to be a flower. It could be a person. It could be a pet. It could be a butterfly. Any of those stamps are going to work with any of these techniques. So what was your favorite? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what technique is your favorite, which card was your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you have a moment and haven't already done so. And thank you so much for coming along and for creating with me.